the consciousness, and the cosmos. A path to one's own inner cosmos.
In assistance of the more profound understanding of the current planetary transition, a stimuli that accompanies the Pilgrim in his return to his cosmic home.
The Consciousness and the Cosmos, radio program of Uksim, Planetary Service Center.
Hello dear listeners, my name is Jez.
My name is Arawinak.
We will be hosting the program. In today's episode we will introduce the first in a series discussing the retrograde or so-called dissuasive forces that are a part of the planetary consciousness we share. Understanding the work and existence of the material forces. Could we live without their presence, and who created them? What is their purpose of existence? And a lot more.
Pero bajo ley de karma, la adhesión no exceptúa pruebas, porque si no seríamos ingenuos. Las pruebas más interesantes, bajo ley de karma, se suceden cuando hay adhesión. Porque ¿qué puede ofrecer la energía como prueba más interesante?
Daniel says, according to the law of karma, following its principles does not mean one will be free from tests and trials. To believe otherwise would be naive. The most intriguing challenges under the law of karma arise when there is adherence, because nothing presents a more fascinating test than a being's commitment to these principles. A being who does not adhere, who will always avoids accompanying the circulatory direction of energy, can pass very primitive and basic tests. It will never pass tests of a higher order. When an aligned being adheres deeply, that is where he is put to the test with tests of a higher order. In contrast, the other, in a primitive state or without adherence, has nothing to do because he doesn't have the necessary instruments.
Cuando un ser alineado adhiere profundamente, ahí es donde se lo pone a ensayar con pruebas de carácter superior, donde el otro, en un estado primitivo, sin adhesión, no tiene nada que hacer, porque no tiene las herramientas, la adhesión.
Adherence is a profound instrument because it confirms that consciousness seeks the circulatory order of that which presents itself, the hidden circulatory order, which is precisely adhering to the impulses of liberation that have its particular circulatory order. Let us never think that adhering will exempt us from certain trials. Instead, it will give us absolute certainty and perfect trials of another condition. In some cases, it feeds the forces with which it is identifying, and those forces grow, grow, grow. Let us remember that there are two poles in the test: the possibility of identifying with the material forces, the retrograde ones, or attuning to the impulses of liberation. Those forces become dinosaurs when I identify with them, complain and say this and that. They manipulate us as they want because we are feeding them.
Entonces, nunca pensemos que el hecho de adherir nos va a exceptuar de pruebas, nos va a exceptuar de ciertas pruebas, pero nos va a dar con total certeza y de un modo perfecto pruebas de otra condición.
If we strafe these forces, they weaken. But that doesn't mean that they will be completely gone. If we follow our impulses for liberation, these forces will remain in a lower position, allowing us to maintain control over them without much effort. It is important to remember that, according to the law of karma, forces are always present. There may be conditions under which we can be defeated or affected, but the forces themselves will always exist. However, they will always be there when we align ourselves with these forces.
When we are synchronized into the stimuli of liberation, the inner cosmicity begins to pour into our consciousness, an aspect of cosmicity that feeds a higher order into our life, a richer, more potent, subtler nourishment. So those forces, while they will still be there, will not have the interference unless we interrupt this internal sustenance. In a karmic field, one thing is continually on top of the other. So for a evolutionary field to be virgin, it has to be totally transformed. So there is a regeneration which is as close as possible to the state that it should have manifested.
Ahí alimenta a la fuerza con la que se está identificando. Y esas fuerzas crecen, crecen, crecen. Recordemos que están los dos polos en la prueba. La posibilidad de identificarnos con las fuerzas materiales, las retrógradas, o con sintonizar los impulsos de liberación.
And as for the light itself, it is not the forces that do not allow the light to express itself, but the identification of our consciousness with the forces. Because the forces do not know what light is, are totally alien to the understanding of what light is, because light is a range of energy that is above the psychophysical field of reality. It is present in everything, but in another dimension. What the forces do very effectively is work to influence or dominate the consciousness that is under those laws.
The psychophysical substance is something where the forces feel in their element because the law of karma and the hierarchy are inserted into the psychophysical, the mental, the emotional, the astral, and the etheric physical substance. They know nothing of light, they know nothing of energy, they know nothing of the cosmos, they know nothing of the soul, they know nothing of higher life, but they know nothing of starvation. They are a bug that knows very well when they are hungry and when they are satisfied.
So what do they do?
Esas fuerzas quedan en un tercer o cuarto lugar y las vamos a poder mantener en orden, en un cierto orden, sin grandes esfuerzos. Recordemos que no hay ausencia de fuerzas bajo ley de karma, no existe la ausencia de fuerzas.
By influencing an individual's consciousness, these forces can vibrationally separate them from their inner source of life, what we might refer to as energy. Cosmic life, light, or essence due to a lack of attunement and alignment. However, it is important to note that these forces are not directly responsible for this disconnection. Rather, we are accountable through our identification with them. It's also worth remembering that the dissuasive forces present in the intermediate fields, mental and astral, often involve a fascinating combination of transient beings and disincarnated egos that are polarized either in the mental, the astral level, or in both simultaneously. In the mental, this occurs exclusively when the astral has been dissolved. In the second stage, when the ego still possesses both an astral body and a mental body, the ego's involvement in these dense fields of energy results in the formation of mixed entities. This means that not only do forces which are temporarily and illusionarily formed as nuclei seek to feed on beings that are out of balance or not attentive to their inner life, but there is also the involvement, especially from the previous cycle, of disincarnate beings or egos.
Sí, porque no conocen la fidelidad tampoco. Esas fuerzas se mueven sin un plan superior. Entonces, se mueven en algo que podríamos entender como por compulsividad instintiva, si fueran, para que entendamos lo que queremos decir. Generalmente hablamos.
The characterization of these entities is quite broad, ranging from those that brutally feed off egos, manipulated by various forces, to those that are empathically receptive to psychic fissures. These entities function as stimulators and karmic executors, operating within the intermediate field of life. They interact in communion with disembodied egos or mixed entities. There are also significant involutionary entities which can be thought of as small nuclei of forces that are renewed as the psychic process of humanity evolve and fluctuate. Since these psychic layers are not uniform, the forces at these levels lack the capacity for cosmic organization. On the contrary, they feel more comfortable in chaos because they are fed back.
¿Por qué? Porque se manejan por compulsividad. Y como en el planeta tienen tanto alimento, a veces no saben dónde morder realmente. porque a la capa psíquica ingresan.
When powerful forces exist in intermediate fields, they tend to absorb smaller nuclei that are forming in order to strengthen themselves. These forces effectively phagocytize one another. The strongest forces often absorb forming nuclei, sometimes reconfiguring them and then releasing them in a different form. We express these ideas in clear and understandable language. These forces do not understand reality. They operate driven by what we could describe as instinctive compulsion. Generally, we refer to instinct as something that opposes the inner energy of human beings. These forces can intensely besiege individuals or groups, suddenly shifting their direction.
¿Por qué? Porque se manejan por compulsividad. Y como en el planeta tienen tanto alimento, a veces no saben dónde morder realmente, porque a la capa psíquica ingresan.
Because they are driven by compulsiveness, and because there is so much food available on the planet, they sometimes struggle to decide where to start. This is compounded by a chaotic mix of thoughts and feelings that create an imbalance, characterized by selfishness, perversion, psychopathy, and individualism. Ultimately, what remains for these forces is food. They lack an organized plan. They may be present for years, only to disappear. Why is that?
Salvo que la energía, por una especie de aplicación de ejecución kármica, la ponga ahí como un picaceso sobre tu cabeza, no se van a ir. ¿Sí? Así, la pone, no se van a ir. Porque la ley de karma a veces coloca a un ser durante toda una encarnación.
Unless the energy, by applying karmic execution, puts it there as a spike staff in your head, they are not going to leave. Because the law of karma sometimes places a being during a whole incarnation. They don't know that the energy is placing them there as a focus of attention of those forces and those forces. In the Middle Ages, there was a torture which was to place a cylinder, a box, on the chest of someone who was tied up, and inside the cylinder and the box, which had no floor, a rat was placed. And the box and all the cylinder was covered. The rat would say, "Well, how do I get out? The softest thing is where I'm standing," which could be the chest, the back, between the legs, the head of a person. And here it's the same thing. The rat doesn't know. It was manipulated. What it is looking for is what to do there, and the only thing to do is this. So sometimes the law of karma places, as in the Middle Ages, they placed a cylinder or a box of rats or several rats. They placed them in a context where they're going to be precisely karmic executors, sometimes for life, for a being or a family or whatever. They have no number because they are not individuals. It is a matter of potentiality and scope. The potentialization and scope is our work, because they have the scope that the deficit of our consciousness offers them. It is not a question of numbers, because they are not individual beings.
decía, bueno, ¿por dónde salgo? Lo más blando que es, donde estoy parada, que podía ser el pecho, la espalda, la entrepierna, la cabeza de una persona. Y acá pasa lo mismo, la rata no sabe que fue manipulada, lo que busca es, bueno, ¿qué hay acá para hacer? Lo único que hay para hacer es esto.
While there are subdivided nuclei, they are potentiated like astral plasticine and mental plasticine. You can take different dolls, put them all together, make the famous dinosaur like when we were kids, and make ducklings or puppies. It's the same plasticine. Except in cases where egos are temporarily in the intermediate plane, it is generally the forces, not the egos, that are transitorily identified and fused with them, that play a significant role. These forces can be understood in terms of voltage, and the law of karma defines their scope based on our lack of inner attunement. This means that it is not accidental that no law regulates these matters. Instead, the law itself regulates the situation. When we are out of tune with our inner attunement, our donation to the inner laws automatically influences how far the law allows the voltage of these forces to increase, including their intensity, reach, and influence. There has never been so much regulation regarding the impact of the law of karma on consciousness and the planetary surface. This regulation allows for an increase in energy levels as a direct result of our disconnection from it. As humanity continues to decline, these forces are intensifying. They are not independent, rather they exist within a magnetic field that governs their actions. Within this action, there may be times when opportunities for action expand. This expansion can serve as a crucial tool for defining the peak of a transitional movement.